Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the webinar on how to prime your audience. This is about getting your audience ready for the presentation. I guess starting out on the right foot, giving a positive spin, a positive impression up front before they've even got into the room or before they've started listening to your presentation or your facilitation. And I use the metaphor of the popcorn as you go to the movies. You know, when you walk into the movie theaters, you can smell that aroma of popcorn and you start to salivate. And if you're like me, you resist buying the popcorn, but I know a lot of people do buy the popcorn, but it does set the scene. It does prime you for the movie, for the experience. So that's what I mean by priming your audience for your presentation, the things you can do before the presentation, before the training, before the facilitation. So Peter Dew's my name. I'm a public speaking trainer and coach. Many of you know me, a couple may not know me. I'm a person who loves to help people unlock their potential through the spoken word, having the confidence to share your messages, your information, your knowledge with the audiences that need to hear the information you've got. So I help people be more confident and more effective in their presentation skills. In terms of webinars, if you haven't done a webinar before, please ask questions as we go. There's a little question box. Don't wait for me to pause and say, are there any questions? At any time, make a question. Please take notes as you go and apply the information that's valuable to you, of use to you, to your own personal situation. So this is about thinking about it, about the application. So think of a past presentation, a past training. What could have you done differently? Or think of one you've got coming up. What are you going to do that's going to make it a better experience for your audience as a result of today? My aim would be that each of you go away with one or two things that you can do differently to elevate the effectiveness of your presentation. So let's get started. The first thing you can do to prime your audience is greet them at the door and just do that simple handshake and that hello and that introduction. I always arrive at my training venues, if I'm a keynote speaker, I always arrive minimum of 1 hour early. I was at Hope Downs 4 on Friday, Rio Tinto, and I arrived nice and early at 5 a.m. in the morning for a 6 a.m. start. You understand, mining sites start work early, and people started to come in early. The first guy arrived at 10 to 6, and I shook his hand and I had a chat, and I connected with him and I found out what he did. And then another person came, and I also had a chat with them and a handshake. And it's not just any handshake, it's the mirror and matching the handshake. Don't hand out the wet fish to a miner who's shaking your hand, and don't crush a young lady's hand when you do the handshake. Watch the handshake that comes mirror and match, and that helps with the connection. So this first 2 or 3 people, I chat to them and I just remember what they've done and where they sit, and then I reflect back to them in my introduction. Then as everyone else files in, the next 6, 7, 8, 10 people, I can't remember their names as well as I can the first 1 or 2. So that straight away, for me, sets the scene for those audience people. And for me, it helps break down my nerves because I've now connected with someone, and I can use some of their stories that they've shared with me in that first 5 minutes before the presentation started. Just do a simple handshake, a meet and greet, mirror and match, connect, find something about the person, and if appropriate, use it in your introductory comments. Send out some pre-workshop instructions. Those of you who've been to one of my workshops will know that I send out several emails, a welcome email, a little bit of a preparation email, and a last email just to get ready. If appropriate, I'll talk to you about parking options, about dressing in layers, because some rooms are too cold and some rooms are too hot. Some rooms are perfect, but some people are too cold and some people are too hot. When I'm doing catering, I will check if there's any catering requirements. I did a workshop in Bunbury out of town, so I had to provide catering because there was no cafes or shops close by. I don't always provide catering for lunch, and one person required gluten-free lunch option. I tell people to bring a pen and a notepad if that's appropriate. If you're at a fancy training venue, and some of the venues I go to, they provide a pen and a notepad for every participant, then I don't need to include that in my housekeeping. A Google map, directions how to get to the room. My wife is doing a presentation tomorrow and it's in the Midwest room in the State Library. It's upstairs in the mezzanine level, and you've got to walk through the kids' play area in the library in West Australia. They've got an area where kids read books and their parents play. And right at the back is a fantastic little training room. If you didn't know it was there, you would never find it. So I need to give a little bit extra instructions around finding the venue. All of this is setting the scene so someone doesn't get lost. If someone arrives late, they know where to go. I also let people know if they're going to be 5 minutes late, let us know, we'll wait for them. If they're going to be 10 minutes late, we will start. Please let me know. We will start without you and just come in and join when you arrive. And I get these SMSs 5 minutes out. Yep, I'm on my way. I'm about 5 minutes away. I'm on my way. I'm stuck in traffic. I'll be about 15 minutes late. All of that is helping to set the scene and prepare your audience for the workshop. And one person said to me, in fact, a few people have said, Peter, as soon as I got your housekeeping emails, that series of emails and that preparation and that reminder, I knew that this was going to be a different workshop. I knew I was going to get something good. Pre-workshop instructions. What other instructions might we send out to help someone get ready? Yes, we could email out some reading, and that's one of my points that I'm going to do later on. Yeah, we can certainly email out something to help them prepare. Read this short article, and that'll set the scene. All right. Moving on. Do a pre-workshop exercise, and that could be some pre-reading, definitely. A case study to review. Do a survey. You can use SurveyMonkey. One of the things when I do in-house workshops, corporate workshops, I'll send out a pre-workshop questionnaire, and part of that questionnaire is about what's the biggest issues for you around public speaking, what experience have you had in public speaking, and what do you want from me? If I can leave you with 2 or 3 things, what do you want from me? And people then send in those answers anonymously. I de-identify them, but I use that to now craft and adjust my content so I address the majority of the needs of the people in the room. Otherwise, I'm just delivering my content and hoping it's what people need. So you can do a pre-workshop exercise. SurveyMonkey's great. It's easy to do and it captures everything online. It also aggregates it for you. When I do that questionnaire, I send the responses to my PA and she then collates them, de-identifies them and collates them into the major responses. And then I can target the content based on that, if that makes sense. So what can you do as a pre-workshop exercise to get your audience ready? You can get them to go to a website. Yes, to have a look at a website and once again read pre-reading on the website. Okay. Moving on. Set the room up right. Set the room up inviting. And there's a number of things you can do. You can find out if you can change the room temperature. 22 degrees is a good temperature for training. Some people find 22 degrees a little bit too cold. At the State Library where I train, we cannot adjust the temperature. It's centrally controlled and the whole library is set at that one temperature. When I was at Rio Tinto on Friday, the training room had its own thermostat and it was a little bit cold at 22 degrees, so we set it up to 23 degrees. And everyone was happy with that. The lighting. And it's not so much if you can get the lighting, but say you're showing PowerPoint, and I do show PowerPoint. Can I dim a particular light that enables people to still read their notes, take notes, and see the screen better? Lighting is also about where you stand, and are there any shadows that if you stand in the shadows, people start to lose seeing you? The spotlight should be on you as the speaker, and you need to know that beforehand, where you can control the lighting, and some rooms have dimmers and some rooms have front lights, middle lights and back lights, and I can dim the front lights when I'm data projecting or showing a video. You can provide water. My wife did a workshop recently up north in Karratha, Women in Leadership, with another female presenter, and they put flowers on each desk. They organised some flowers. I'm quite allergic and I don't like flowers in my training room, but that's just another thing you can do for a different audience. It sets the temperature. It's the popcorn. Walk into a room and there's flowers on each desk. Your mints, your water, the general ambience of the room. Some people have their pens and their notepads printed with their branding and their logo, and that just creates more of a professional atmosphere around the room. I went with the Rio one, I took up a bag of minties and it went down really well. I came back, it was a big bag, a bulk bag, and I came back with no minties after one day workshop. And the catch cry for the day, because I get people to stand up and speak and they get quite nervous, the catch cry for the day was, it's times like these that you need a minty. So how can you set up the room right? What are some other ways, some other things that you can do to set up your room just to let people know they're in the right room, you're professional at what you do? Just type a couple of ideas in. What might you do to set up your room for your next presentation, or something you already do that I haven't thought of? Video camera, and there is a video camera in this picture I'm showing you. Yes, some public speaking trainers do have a video camera towards the back, and those people that want their presentation video recorded, they can then share that video with the individual and they can review it and use it for self-coaching. Okay. Do a pre-workshop webinar. And I've done this quite often for corporates and when I'm doing more targeted material. So the power of storytelling and teaching organisations how to tell stories. Now, storytelling becomes a subset of my one-day workshop, but when people want me to come in and do a one-day storytelling workshop, then I will do a pre-workshop webinar. And in that webinar, it might only be half an hour like this one. I'm going to set the scene. I'm going to clarify why we do stories, and stories are things that people remember more so than facts and information. And I clarify that I'm not talking about entertaining stories. I'm not talking about bedtime stories. I'm talking about a business story that illustrates a point. And I'll even ask them to look at some points they want to make and to go away and try and find an example or a story in their life, and I'll give them a couple of examples on the webinar and bring them along, and during the workshop we can hone that story into a really tight business story that they can use over and over again. Once again, we can cover some pre-workshop material, so even the pre-workshop questionnaire or the pre-workshop reading I could cover in a webinar format rather than sending out that article to read. That way I've got just about everyone covered. The other thing with the pre-workshop webinar, you can record it so that people can then review it. If they can't attend, they can still review it before they come to the workshop. And it becomes a valuable tool that they can keep going back to in relation to the workshop. Some people have issues and concerns. So when I do overcoming your fear of public speaking, a lot of people worry about their fear and their nerves and their mind going blank and them falling to bits, and they really don't want to stand up and speak in front of a group of people, but they want to overcome their fear of public speaking. So on my webinar, I deal with their issues and concerns, and I start to coach them and give them some facts and information around controlling nerves so that when they come, they're already primed to do a presentation. They're less nervous, they're less anxious about what's going to unfold during the day. What else could you cover on a pre-workshop webinar? On a pre-workshop webinar. Yes, you could cover some statistics. So if there's some data that's going to format the content, maybe you're doing an orientation or a safety meeting, in the webinar you could highlight some of the risks, the incidents, the data that's occurred across Australia as a result of a particular area you're training in. So you've created relevance, and you've also created a need or a pain point. So this is the risk that you're going to face, working in the mining sector. So I just want to let you know about this before we do the orientation or the health and safety workshop next week. Are there any other reasons why we might do a pre-workshop webinar? I'm just going to pause for a moment also. Are there any other questions relating to setting the scene, relating to priming your audience? Yes, you can send out books. I did a workshop a while back with an organisation called SkillPath, and it was about general communications, and it was a one-day workshop, but it was one of these workshops where they put 100 people in the room, so no real experiential learning, just watching the guy speak, listening to him. But they had a textbook, a proper published textbook on communication skills that they posted out to everyone 2 weeks before, and there was a prerequisite that you read the book, or I guess there was a hope that you read the book before you come to the workshop. So you can send out other materials to get ready as well. Some people send out the file, the workbook file. I know when I was doing some external study, the course material was sent out first, and then you do the pre-reading, you do some exercises, and then you would go to the workshop, you'd go to the university for your in-house, for your residential component, with all that material supposedly pre-read. Let's move on. Why don't you send them a video or a TED Talk to watch? So you might have a little YouTube clip, or there may be a TED Talk that's of particular value. So it helps to set the scene, and it also ensures prior knowledge. So it can almost be like a little mini course. Now, two things that I do use TED Talks for specifically. One of them, when it's overcome your fear of public speaking, I send out the TED Talk on Amy Cuddy. Now, Amy Cuddy, so that's A-M-Y, talks about faking it until you become it. So it's about power posing. And Amy is a Harvard Business School lecturer, and she has an acquired brain injury. She came back to work and her cognition, her brain was still not quite working right. But her professor said, look, just go on stage, and she's speaking to Harvard Business University school students. Just go on and fake it till you become it. And what Amy Cuddy found was that when you pretend, when you act big, you come across more confident, as more credible, and as more competent. So when I'm helping people overcome their fear of public speaking, I will send them the Amy Cuddy video, the TED Talk prior to the workshop, and I'll let them know that it's okay to fake their confidence. In other words, they can be nervous and they can be dying and they can be having brain drains, but their body language and their persona, they should fake that confidence. What YouTube video do you have? What TED Talk have you seen that relates to your profession, to your topic? Another one that I do, and it is another TED Talk, and that's by Brené Brown. B-R-E, Brené, and it's got a little thing over the top which makes it say Brené and Brown, no E on the end of Brown. Brené Brown talks about the power of vulnerability. And one of the keynotes I do is around courage, how to be more courageous, how to bring courage into your life. And the thing with courage is that it's not the absence of fear, rather it's doing those things that you're afraid of despite the fear. And Brené Brown talks about the power of vulnerability and how leaders that reveal their vulnerability, their struggle, their mistakes, their journey to get to the top as a leader are in fact better leaders, more admired, better connection and rapport. People are more prepared to follow them, which is a little bit contrary to what most leaders try to do. Leaders must not reveal their vulnerability. Leaders must be seen as strong and solid and have no self-doubts. So when I talk about courage, I send out the TED Talk on Brené Brown. What are some videos that you might send out that relate to your talk? Does anyone have any videos that they know of? And you may have an in-house production video. I saw a little YouTube video the other day from the Tourette syndrome, and it was about a young boy who was being teased at school. And people were excluding him, and the headmaster invited him up on stage in front of the assembly and got him to talk and explain Tourette syndrome. And he asked him, do you have any control over your tics? And the little boy said, the young man said, no. And do you like making these noises when someone's talking to you or in class? And he said, no, I absolutely hate it. And at the end, the whole school stood up and gave him a standing ovation. So you could use that kind of video to talk about the power of disclosure. And I was watching The Voice last night, or may have been Saturday night, and one of the top contestants who got through, all their chairs turned around, was a young man with Tourette syndrome. And he doesn't have Tourette's when he sings, the tics go away, and then as soon as he stops singing, the Tourette's surface. You could use a video like that if you wanted to raise awareness around Tourette syndrome. Moving on, make the place safe. So make the audience feel safe, and you can do this very early on in your introduction, or you can even do it beforehand. So I work in a public speaking space. I work in a fear space, mankind's number one fear, overcoming your fear of public speaking. So what I do is I make sure the audience knows that they're not going to die. They don't have to participate if they don't want to, and that everyone in the room is there for the same reason. Make the audience feel safe. My wife works in difficult conversations, assertiveness, and is an ex-social worker and trauma counsellor, and she has a rule of confidentiality. What is said in the room needs to stay in the room. Really important. Otherwise, people won't share about some of their vulnerabilities, about some of their struggles or some of their concerns. Really important with an in-house one when my wife's working in-house. She wants to make it safe for them. So only disclose at a level that you're comfortable with. Your participation, as I said, is voluntary, but I'd invite you to stand up and have a go. So all of these things will help you set the scene, will help you prime your audience to present. Which one can you do differently? The handshake, the meet and greet, mirror the handshake, speak for a couple of minutes, the early arrivers, spend a bit more time with them because no one else is there yet, and learn a little bit about them. Remember, jot it down. Pre-workshop instructions, send them out. Rooms can get hot, rooms can get cold. Bring a pen and paper. Pre-workshop exercise, send out a MailChimp or a SurveyMonkey questionnaire. Set the room up right, mints, water, lighting. Do a pre-workshop webinar. Send a TED Talk or a video to watch and make the place safe. Let them have the rules. So a little bit like a movie, make the popcorn smell, make the feeling for the audience be really one of anticipation, one of excitement as they enter the room. How are you going to prime your audience for your next presentation? What can you do? Now, I may not have covered everything, but I've covered a wide range of options, just little things you can do in the background as people arrive, before people arrive, just to help them get ready. Any last questions before we conclude? Any last comments? Clear as mud? Really quite simple stuff. It's around your preparation. Some upcoming workshops, assertive communication skills is tomorrow. We'd love 1 or 2 more participants. Feel the fear. Sorry, I should have taken that out. Feel the fear on the 18th is not going ahead. Another one of the workshops I do, and I need to set the scene for Feel the Fear. And Susan Jeffers wrote the book. One of my pre-workshop requirements is that you need to have read the book and bring a book along. It's a Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway workshop based on Susan Jeffers' book. June, difficult conversations. My wife's workshop, winning presentation skills, my workshop, thinking and speaking off the cuff in July, and assertiveness once again in July. And we do have some in Victoria coming up in July. I just don't have them on the website as yet, so keep an eye out for those. If there's no further questions,